Welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds. I'm Nerdarchy Ryan. In this intro to D&D character creation video, we're going to talk about ability scores. I'd like to start out by giving a massive thank you to Easy Roller Dice, who's going to be sponsoring this series. Jump down to the description below, where you can find out how to save 20% off of your order with Easy Roller Dice. Now, when you're going to make a character, before you even go to your player's handbook or whatever your resource you're going to use, there's the basic rule set. Before you even get too deep in flipping through the book, you should just take some time to think about what kind of character you want to play. What trope or archetype are you attracted to trying to portray in a role-playing game? Is your character a mighty and stalwart defender, maybe like Reinhardt from Overwatch? Well, a human paladin might be a fitting character class to want to play. Maybe you want to do an elven archer like Legolas from Lord of the Rings. So an elven ranger totally satisfies that. Or maybe you want to make a resourceful and foolhardy character, like Harry Potter. And so that would just be a young human wizard. So in Dungeons & Dragons, there's 6 ability scores. There's Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma. So each of these has different effects on the game and also has certain optimal character classes you might choose to play. So for Strength, it's your ability to the things you can carry, how hard you hit if you're making physical attacks, or even your ability to resist being forcibly moved places or shoved off of a chasm, perhaps. Conan the Barbarian would be a pretty good example of a heavily strength-based character. Now we can think about Dexterity. Dexterity is just how quick you are, your sense of finesse, maybe how acrobatic your character is, so are they light on their feet? And it's also represents your ability to get out of the way of certain harmful effects, like say a fireball or other spell that takes up a large area, a large swath of the battlefield. It's kind of your way to jump the heck out of the way and avoid danger. So a character like Frodo Baggins would be a pretty good example of a nimble character who uses their fleet of footness to keep them out of danger and harm's way. Constitution is your bodily health, your fitness. It influences how many hit points you're going to have. So it's very important for warrior type characters, and it's also your ability to stave off diseases and poisons and things of that nature. So along with Conan the Barbarian, Red Sonja from that same series, another just physical character with a lot of physicality, would tend to have a high Constitution score. Intelligence is really about your intellect, your mental prowess, your capacity for problem solving. And so when you think of intelligence, you're going to think about someone who's well versed in lore and knowledge, and is going to be sort of your Gandalf sort of character. So while intelligence is your capacity to learn and know things, wisdom is about things that you just sort of read and intuit. So wisdom is really about primal senses and sort of awareness of things, and sometimes it can be also like a stoic faith. The Red Priestess from the Game of Thrones series would be a character that had a high wisdom score. Now, charisma is your likability. Sometimes it can be tied to looks, but really is about the way that you can grab people's attention when you enter a room. Just your presence and your bearing. It's sort of how some celebrities are known to be, like when they enter a room, everyone wants to pay attention to them. A character with a high charisma kind of has that effect on a room and really can just rally people behind them with their words, deeds, and actions. So a character like Tyrion Lannister from the Game of Thrones series is a character who's very charismatic. Like, maybe he's not likable to every character in the series, but many times there are so many people that are moved to follow him once he's persuaded them. It's helpful when you're thinking about ability scores to not only think about what's going on with the highest ability scores you have, but sometimes also think about the lowest ability scores as well. So if you have a high strength score but a low dex, that's going to say that they're really clumsy on their feet, but they're really strong. So is your character sort of a big oaf, Are they maybe kind of overweight? Your character's weight and body build doesn't really have to be in line with your ability scores, but it could. Maybe with that strong character with a low dexterity score, maybe they sustained an injury on the battlefield to their leg, they have a slight limp, and so they have a harder times getting away out of the way of danger. It's the same thing. You can imagine that the lowest ability scores in different ability scores, like intelligence. If it's in your intelligence, well, are they just haven't had much exposure to knowledge, or are they just kind of dull-witted naturally, and that's why their intelligence score is low? So maybe that low intelligence character, maybe you're not playing them as dumb as a rock, but they're not coming up with brilliant battle strategy, and those are both sensible ways to go however you want to play your character and portray them. We went over the abilities that a character has. There's 6 abilities. There's ability scores, and that's going to tell you how good your character is at doing a thing, taking a various actions that they might throughout the course of gameplay. So the ability scores, you have the standard array, which is a 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8. So typically you can assign any of these ability scores once to any one of your abilities. And so putting that 15 in the ability is going to say this is what they're the best at, and putting the 8 in an ability score is saying this is the thing that they're weakest at. Because Dungeons and Dragons, it's an ensemble cast sort of game. Like, think of it like a superhero team or anything else, or the show Firefly. Like, people had their strengths and they had their weaknesses, their blind sights. No character is super powerful. You can do a point buy, and that gives you 27 points to spend. The standard array actually uses a 27 point buy, and it's kind of the most across the board even character. You have some things that you're fantastically good at, you have one thing that you're kind of bad at, and then other things you're kind of middle of the road depending on how you arrange your ability scores. There's other ways to distribute your point buy to where maybe you're not fantastic at anything, but you're not bad at anything either. There's different ways of how you want your character to be in the game. And then from there, you also have just dice rolling to generate your character ability scores, which there's different ways. You can either roll 3 6-sided dice or 4 6-sided dice and discount the lowest die. And either which way those processes you go through, you're going to generate 6 numbers and arrange them how you want. Now, I kind of like using the point buy because it makes sure that everyone has a roughly equivalent or equal character. So this way, the person running the game, the dungeon master, is going to have an easier time of gauging how effectively are you going to be to handling threats and conflicts and things like that, where everybody's on slightly even footing. But if everyone were to randomly generate their character's ability scores, the dungeon master would have no idea what's going to almost kill one character, while on the other hand, be nothing of a threat to another. So as you go about assigning your ability scores, you have your primary ability score, which is typically the thing that's most important to your character class. Say for a fighter, that's going to be strength. For a rogue, that's going to be dexterity. You have your secondary score, which is just going to be your second highest score. So what would be the second most important ability that you would assign to this character concept you came up with? Now, if you wanted to make them a very clever character, maybe the second score, and say they're a rogue, maybe that second score is going to be intelligence, but maybe they're kind of like this tough sort of street thug character, and you assign that second highest ability score to your constitution, so they can really take a hit, they're really good in a fight. And so you're already starting to say something about your character by where you put these ability scores. And then from there, as you arrange your scores, you're also going to have your lowest score. And again, that's going to say something very specific about your character. Putting an 8 in strength, they're kind of weak. Like maybe if it's a smaller character race like a gnome or a halfling, maybe you're saying, well, they're just small and they're not particularly strong for their race, so they have an 8 strength. Whereas if you put that 8 in charisma, maybe you're saying they're either decidedly unlikable, or maybe they're kind of horrendously scarred and people don't want to look at them, or maybe they're just their personality is so quiet that they just don't grab people or anyone's attention when they're trying to talk. Like they're just overtalked and just out and out ignored when they say anything. And those are all different ways of dealing with the same thing of having an 8 charisma. Now, when you're starting with a first level character, your character isn't awesome yet. They get better and better as you gain levels, you gain new abilities, and they become a considerably different character from when they were first level to when they're 17th to 20th level. So you get to, at varying points in the game, which is laid out in the player's handbook and your progression charts for your class, get to improve your character either by increasing their ability scores every 4 levels, or you can also take these things called feats, which we'll describe later. But they're things that you would take that make your character become very unique to the character that you're deciding you want to play. So in our next video, we're going to jump into making our very first character together. So we'll do that in no time, and you'll see how easy it is. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks so much, Easy Roller Dice, for sponsoring this video. And until next time, stay nerdy.